Look, don't pray for me, pray for your sins. Knowing I'm destined to win. Knowing if the police pull me over, I'll be gone for 10. Knowing that I did some niggas dirty for them Benjamins. So I'm cautious when I'm pulling out, aggressive when I'm pulling in. My little cousin died at 18. Man, he could've been a doctor or a lawyer, but he land in the soil. My brother in the feds ain't seen his daughter. The ones who post me down, they ain't never there for you. The middle of the summer with my hoodie on.
I'm gonna usually probably look at you. I like to be a little bit personal, but you know, I'm supposed to take my You got the right one. You got the right. You got the right one. Yeah, you got the right one. You got the right. You got the right one.
You all the things.
You got the right one. My niggas gon' fight, no. Why you keep with your life, huh? Cause my shooters gon' strike some. We gon' do this all night, huh? Lil' Roby's the pipe tub, so you know it's on sight, huh? I won't stop her at lights, no. All the nights I ran it up. Pray the Lord forgive me, I've been fucking my city up. Got shooters like 21. We got the right one, yeah. You got the right one, yeah. I hit the block with the gigs, I haven't slept up in weeks. I made a play, I can't take the same route it again. Real niggas know what I mean. I got a bitch and she know I be fucking a friend. Now she be fucking the team, just got in the town and you know I'ma fuck up a bag on exotic, I smoke ever lead. I got a name in the streets, won't get a name up for me. I got some shooters that come through and run in your house and light up a thing that they see. Tryna be famous a nigga, now you a dangerous a nigga. Roll GTA with the pistol, now you a brainless a nigga. Yeah. Now you a brainless a nigga. You got the right one. I'm on my line. I was putting on the face like a Terry.
Yeah.
My intro, okay. Hey, y'all know what the going on. I'm gonna watch my language because my mama be watching my pods and I want her to watch the whole thing. So you know, but yeah, like I always say, people got like several faces, and we should be freely able to express all of them at any given time. So like sometimes I don't know if you remember in high school, like I didn't know this at the time, but I would go on stage or like, for example, for prom, the way I asked my girlfriend, I don't know if you had lunch with me, but I was standing on the table with a sign and like as soon as everybody came in the lunchroom, I just was like shouting like, will you go? And I just think that was a face. It's not me all the time, but it's like a part of me that I like to share with everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people try to hold those sides in, their creative side, their passionate side, their intimate side. I just share it. So
yeah, that's who he's supposed to be.
Yeah, facts. But again, ArtByC, I'm here with I would not call you my day one, but somebody I've been on for at least 20 years. Go ahead and introduce yourself. What's your name? Where you from?
Hi everyone, my name is Brook Lafloe. My family actually comes from the Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota, but my mom came here for college and I grew up east side St. Paul my whole life.
You wanna?
Yeah.
What
You want me
to? Yeah. So I met you in high school?
Yeah.
Okay, high school, Highland Park. You know, alumni. I'm an alumni at least. You graduated from?
I graduated from Johnson.
Okay, but you went to Highland for like 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, first 2 years.
Okay, and like, what was your experience just like as a young? What is your nationality? What would you consider yourself?
Native American.
Like straight?
Yeah.
Okay,
Straight
indigenous.
Up. Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you consider your upbringing like? You know, being a Native American young lady. Twin Cities?
Yep.
Yeah, growing up in the Twin City area, how was that for you?
Yeah, I think, my parents grew up on the reservation in North Dakota, so they grew up around other people, and all my grandparents and cousins and aunties and uncles grew up there too, so we were alone in the cities, I had to make friends, and it was nice being in St. Paul because we got people of every color, every language in St. Paul, so I got to have a worldview, if that makes sense, like a global view of the world. But my parents also very much kept us close to our culture. Mm-hmm. So we went home for holidays, summer times, we went home all the time. And then, I went to American Indian Magnet School. I was in Indian education throughout high school. So I had a good upbringing, with my culture and then with the common, greater culture too.
Got you. Let me turn the speaker off real quick because that shit gonna start beeping. Okay, so you said went back home. So home is North Dakota.
Yeah.
Okay, what does home look like? Because the average layman, that term just means somebody that don't know.
Yeah.
Not saying that you didn't know. I'm sorry, I do that all the time.
No, you're good. You're good.
But the average layman might not. My idea of a reservation, because you know when people say Africa, they think of like deserts, huts, big ass fucking jungle animals everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not realistic. I got a friend that live in Kenya right now. He showed me I call him on FaceTime, but it's probably like 3 a.m. And but when he does call me, it's always like big cities, big ass highways, lots of lights and stuff like that. He showed me their downtown area was bigger than ours. You know what I mean? So what does home look like on a res?
Yeah, our reservation does okay. You know, we have a lot of educated people, so like our tribe is good at getting grants. They've built infrastructure for our reservation, so we got schools, you know, we got gyms, we got gas stations, we got one grocery store, and you think of some other reservations don't have all that. And so when I say infrastructure, like we have a little town, and like we're thriving in a good way. But that's why I said we're doing okay. There's reservations that have less than that significantly, right? Like they got a trailer for a gym and there's hardly any machines in there, and people, you know, can't eat because there's now a grocery store on the reservation, but it's in town, and they might not even have transportation to get to town to eat. And so our reservation is good. I love the Turtle Mountains. I'm proud to be from there.
What's the name of your
tribe?
Yeah. Yes. Family.
Yeah. We are we're Ojibwe.
Okay.
So we're the only Ojibways in North Dakota. We're like the only Ojibways in the plains, and you get out there, you're running into the Lakotas and Dakotas, which is a different tribe. And so we've mixed up practices. Being the only Ojibways out there, we've kind of mixed up practices a little bit, and beliefs and culture a little bit with them.
How many tribes are recognized by the United States government in locally, or just in the United States and at all?
So in Minnesota, we got 11 federally recognized tribes.
I read that,
and everybody probably knows Shakopee, right? Shakopee, Mystic Lake, is the richest tribe in the nation. Yeah, the richest. Like they own
just a casino.
Yeah, the casino, but they've also diversified their sources of income. Like they built the Saints Stadium, they got their names on Target Center, right? Gotcha. And they've so diversified businesses.
Got you.
Yeah, so that's what makes them really rich.
That's love.
Yeah.
Is that a goal that most tribes try to do, is to try to kind of like outsource their resources, their income, to try to like build up their tribe, or a lot of people trying to keep their stuff like homegrown? And
it's a mix out there. So 11 in Minnesota, but nationally there's like 500 plus federally recognized tribes in North America, in our country.
Different tribes or different areas of the same tribes? So like, you know how we'll have Lakota in Minnesota, is there a Lakota of California, right? Or is there a complete different tribe, 500 completely different tribes?
So that's a good question. There's not 500 completely different ones, because even in Minnesota, like north of the cities is all Ojibwe. Gotcha. Right, but there's 7 different reservations that are Ojibwe. So those individual reservations govern themselves, right?
Considered a different tribe then?
Yep.
Gotcha.
Well, yeah, by the federal government, we're recognized as different. But, me being Ojibwe and knowing Red Lake Ojibwe, we're still both Ojibwe. We speak the same language, right?
But that's just how the government will recognize it. Gotcha. So that's why they got 500 considered recognized tribes. Okay.
Yeah, like 500 established treaties and reservations.
Got you.
Yeah.
One thing that I did read, and I wanted to bring this up with you, and this is gonna be a real tough conversation for me to have, at least, just because I'm so far disconnected. First off, let me bring this up. Yeah. In Native American schools, because you went to a early childhood ed there? Yeah,
it was called the American Native Magnet School. It's technically part of St. Paul Public Schools.
Got you. Yeah. That was the next thing I was going to say. But do they teach Native American history?
They do, yep.
How far back does that go to?
I would say prior, me being Ojibwe, like we have a story about how we came over here. We're actually from the East Coast. Got you. And that story about how we came over here happened before colonization. Got you. So it happened before the U.S. was established, before Christopher Columbus came over. There's that sense of like history before the establishment of the United States. But then we also talk about history at the establishment of the United States.
Right.
And that's one right there, Christopher Columbus Day, right? That's what we recognize federally as being founded by Christopher Columbus. But, you know, he created genocide. He raped Native women. Like, he actually did a lot of atrocious things. And so we as Native people do not celebrate that. Like, we do not honor Christopher Columbus. We don't do that here.
Gotcha.
And we have Indigenous Peoples Day. So,
you know, I've actually celebrated Indigenous People Day with a couple of my homies. So
yeah, so
like,
that's the history and the difference, kind of.
Does Native American schools on the res, do they get that far back before the colonization?
Yeah, I would say so. You know,
okay.
I think a lot of people know our own stories, and they're not written in the textbooks, and it's up to us to keep those stories going.
That was one of the reasons why I brought it up, because I have a lot of people from different genres of life come through. I got people from Kenya, you know, Swahili speaking people coming. Yeah, for real. So I get a lot of Native American people, and I like to think that I'm Native. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I asked them, you know, questions about things that I may know or think or assume to be fact. And sometimes what I get a lot of the time is a lot of them don't really have any information at all when it comes to historical facts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And socially, I can understand where that would come from, because in the African American community, you can ask an average black person about Martin Luther King, and most of they can tell you is, I had a dream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a standard I get in any community that everybody doesn't necessarily care about history. But that was why I asked specifically, because when you ask, it's almost as if they're not taught.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I asked: is this something being taught in the books, or is it something that you gotta go word of mouth?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's definitely word of mouth. You know, what's in the history books is what they gave us.
Right.
Right. And like, we didn't write those history books.
Right.
We didn't write those textbooks. And this is why college is important, right? Because then you get critical thinking skills.
Right.
You got to learn the side of every story, both sides, to get a full picture, right? But what we've been predominantly given in our public school system is the textbooks that they wrote for us.
For sure.
And that textbook explains the founding of America through Christopher Columbus, right?
For sure.
So if there's no indigenous perspective or narrative in there, it's just erased.
Yeah.
Right. And that's almost also the erasure of our people, and like why nobody knows what happened to us. And so, and a lot of it was to get land. It was a land grab. Like the University of Minnesota was based off of, it's older than the state of Minnesota, first of all, but all of their universities were based off of land grabs, getting land from Native peoples, and then establishing the university. So yeah, and they're just now starting.
I didn't know. That's crazy.
Yeah, they're just now. The U of M released a truth report, and they did a study on themselves about that, which is really cool. And
say that again. So like, the land that white people came over here and purchased was mainly or largely like the universities that we have.
Nah, that's just so. You know, they call it westward expansion. You know, like they came on the East Coast, and then as they colonized and started creating the states in the United States, they started moving westward, right? So Minnesota kind of was, Minnesota is in the middle, right? Yeah. So they started with the East Coast, New York, all that, and a lot of those tribes actually just got wiped out. Because at the contact of, Native indigenous populations here had not created, we didn't have like smallpox in America yet. We didn't have all these sicknesses that had come from Europe. And so some of them came over and we didn't have no immunities yet. Like we didn't have no antibodies. So like the Mohegans they just all died. A lot of tribes got just completely wiped out until they started expanding westward. Then they got to Minnesota, right? And then in Minnesota, there was like the Dakota Wars, and we could go into that too, but the university started before the state of Minnesota. So the university was like Cloquet Forestry Center with the University of Minnesota is Fond du Lac's tribe.
Okay.
That was their land that they took.
Right, got you.
So they were establishing the university sites even before Minnesota became a recognized state for the U.S. government. But then, the U.S. government also
came in and took it over.
Came in and created the borders, right? Like all of our state borders were developed by the states.
So I have a perspective. I want to get your mindset, because you said when the U.S. came in, Europeans,
Yeah.
They expanded and came in eastward initially.
Yeah, they started East Coast and then westward expansion. Started moving west.
Got you. Little history lesson that I like to give people. Yeah. And I know you got a brain, so I love this, right?
Yeah.
What was the first purchase from the United States? On U.S. soil.
Man, it's hard to say, and like I don't know if purchase
documented.
Yeah, it'd probably be around New York area.
It was Louisiana.
That was after though. That was way after the U.S. was established. The Louisiana Purchase.
The U.S. was established in '76.
Yeah.
That's the Constitution. 1776.
Yeah, but they arrived in 1492, right?
So you said their book is their story.
Yeah.
So I'm just playing the game, just trying to see where we can go with this, right?
Yeah.
So they came in 1468, whatever, Christopher Columbus Day.
Yep.
1776 is when the Constitution signed. Got you.
And that was, right, that's after all the states have been already colonized. So it took those hundreds of years.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of, yeah. It took all those years to kind of establish the United States and the Constitution.
That's what they say. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
I ain't mad at that perspective either because I was taught that as well.
You're right. Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah.
If you move to California in 2001 and don't have a place to live by 2025, what are you considered?
Oh, you know what they call us. You know what they say.
What would they call you?
They call them illegal aliens.
You would be an alien, or you would be homeless, or you would be something that's in a negative perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just one perspective. So the America came here in 1468. They got here. They signed a treaty in 1776 saying this was their land, but they didn't own anything yet. Mm-hmm. That was 200, 300 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to put this in your mind, right? Yeah. So if you went to California and didn't own anything, didn't have a place to live, a car, nothing, for 20 years, you would be considered an alien, a homeless person, a nuisance, all of this.
Yeah.
Okay. When was their first purchase? Louisiana Purchase was about 18. Let me Google
look that one up.
Yeah.
And you know I went to college in New Orleans, right? So I know a little bit about Louisiana.
I love it. LouisianaPerchase, Louisiana Purchase. 1803. I was gonna say 1804. Okay. So 76 was when they signed their treaty. 1804 was when they legally. And what I like is because I've been studying the history of, or the etymology of things, the beginning of stuff, how they started, where it began. And what I like about the United States is what they did is they've documented everything in their history.
They did.
And they didn't leave anything out. So I like to play games and try to connect the dots, kind of like the telephone game.
Yeah.
And see how it adds up. But okay, so the U.S. got their first piece of land in 1803.
Through the Louisiana Purchase you talking about?
Yeah. And they signed that treaty in 76. So in your head, if you signed a lease for ownership and wasn't able to obtain it for another 30 years, how do you feel? What was your perspective in that? First off, just to let that simmer. Secondly, when did you said smallpox and disease is how they kind of ran out and killed off. Killed off is the word they like to use or throw around. But again, playing the telephone game. I said I like to think that I'm native or indigenous. When did the Caribbean islands begin to open up? This is a random question, I know, on top of that, but any island in the Caribbean. When was the first island in the Caribbean created or opened?
That's a good question. I'm not I don't know the Caribbean history like that.
The Eastern Hemisphere, the eastern coast of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here's the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, and the Caribbean's right over here.
Yeah.
And I just want you to see the proximity just because when the Louisiana Purchase, because the trilateral route they would have used to trade slaves would have been here and would have been all over that area where a lot of the indigenous people who were here probably would have encountered a lot of those people like Christopher Columbus. That's why we say the East Coast.
Yeah.
And the very next purchase they got was, like you said, was Jamestown, New York. That's why New York is the Mecca and all of this other stuff. It was actually named after the king at the time. My reasoning for saying all of that is the Caribbean islands began to get populated. Hey Siri, what year was the first Caribbean island populated? It's going to say 1804, 1802, 18 something. Let's see this. When was...
Like, when was it colonized? Or is that what you're asking?
When was people founded there at first? Jamaica was born in 1962. Let's go with Haiti. I'm just showing you the timeline on how all of... I don't know how to spell Haiti. I don't know. Wow. But the timeline on when all of the Caribbean islands was created based on when all of the United States European came, it's like right after.
So they colonized the Americas and then they went down and colonized.
1804, Haiti was the first Caribbean island. 1803 was the first American state that they actually bought. So the information that I've researched and I believe to be somewhat truthful, along with your story and information, because I just believe that like we've been so separated from stuff like this that we really can't prove anything. But like when I connect the dots, if people came on the Eastern Hemisphere and you go to the Eastern Hemisphere right now, go to New York, what's the major demographic of people you see? You're going to see a lot of brown skin. Regardless of their nationality, there's going to be a lot of brown skin. Puerto Rican, Dominican, Black. Go to Florida, what you see? Same thing. You go to Alabama. It leads me to believe that those people have been there for centuries, and they're going to tell you it's because of slavery. But then when you look at like some of the history, when they started their states, 1803, then the very next January, the first day of the next year, these niggas got their own country.
Yeah. And
then you can go down the list of a bunch of different Caribbean islands that began to be populated. And then you can go down the list of a bunch of like states that began to get populated on the Western Hemisphere, like Seattle, like Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's not even a Caribbean. But when you look at the demographic of those people, what nationality would they look closest to, in your opinion?
Honestly, I think after colonization or before. Everybody's indigenous to somewhere, right?
Let's say before colonization.
Then they would be indigenous to that land.
To Hawaii?
Yeah. Yep. They'd be indigenous Hawaiians, which we, in America, technically put under the bracket of Native American Indian, essentially.
Do you think those two people are... What do you think the biggest difference is between those two groups of nationalities of people?
Well, Hawaiians are, they're islanders.
Yeah.
So the lifestyle is different. Like their access to like land and resources is different. Mm-hmm. Like we, Ojibwe people fish walleye. You can fish walleye across half the country.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, but if you're in an island, you're only set to what's available on that island.
So
and then the languages. Like yep. And then and so they're fishermen too, right? But a different kind of, they're ocean fishermen, not freshwater fishermen.
Gotcha.
And then the languages too. Like the languages all come from somewhere. And Hawaiians, I don't know what their parent language is or where it comes from, but they have their own like indigenous language too. That's been pretty much revitalized, and like they got first language speakers again with their kids speaking their indigenous languages. A lot of indigenous languages are going to sleep. They're going away.
Why do you say that?
Because the boarding school era in like the 1800s, right? It took babies, literally babies, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, took all our kids from their families and shipped them across the state, across the country. You think about the University of Minnesota Morris, that was a boarding school in Minnesota. And they separated them to kill the Indian and save the man. They said, you can't speak your language no more. We're cutting off all your hair. We're beating you if you speak your language. Like, we're removing you from your culture. We're giving you the Bible, right? You're going to memorize the Bible. And it took a few generations for them to, like, remove the languages and cultures from our people.
What is the biggest thing you think separates you guys, tribe to tribe versus state?
That's a tough one, like, because even before colonization, before the U.S. came in, we didn't all get along.
Understood.
Yeah, we didn't all get along.
But
right?
it was way more cohesive.
It was.
Then.
It was. It wasn't straight up, bombing each other and stuff like that. Like, we didn't have bombs or anything,
Facts.
but
it wasn't just like malicious all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think with all the trauma and all the things, like, you could look it up. There's hundreds of U.S. federal policies made for Native Americans. The assimilation era, the boarding school era, the
Native American Removal Act.
Yep, the Removal Act. Exactly. That's how they tried to bring us to cities and assimilate us. I think a lot of that trauma lives in our people, and like our people don't know how to get out of survival mode sometimes, and so we pit ourselves against other tribes, we pit ourselves against other races, right? And like that is a social construct of like, if we keep all these black and brown people fighting and arguing, they ain't gonna fight us. Yeah, they're gonna fight each other, and that's how we're gonna keep winning. Essentially, that's how we're gonna keep controlling them, right? Like,
so it's bigger than money. It's like accessibility almost.
Yeah, that, and then too, like, you keep the people busy working and fighting. How are they going to uprise against the U.S. government? How can we, and we've had like spurts of it in our life and history, right? Like, we've seen what happened here during George Floyd, right? So like, we've seen like minor uprisings or whatever you want to call it, but never enough to overthrow. We've even seen Trump's people overthrow the White House, and that was crazy, right? So like, you see spurts of that, like, in moments in history. But the government is still around, still in control, The
1947-48 Native American Removal Act, are you familiar with what that is? Yeah. Can you share with us? I'm a little bit familiar, but I'd rather you tell us, because I'm agreeing with you so far with everything. So shit, I think you're gonna be on point with this too. So
if it's the one I think you're talking about, this was the removal. So we signed treaties, we established reservations, and Native Americans had to live on the reservations, right? You got to go live in Red Lake. You got to go live. The Removal Act, or I think that's what it was called. It might be like Assimilation Act, is when they started saying, all right, we gave them this land, but we still want it, so we're going to start assimilating them. We're going to move them to the cities. So that's how Minneapolis became a removal city. It's like, we're going to move them to the cities. We're going to give natives, jobs. We're going to give them training. We're going to give them a little bit of housing. We're going to give them enough for them to contribute to the greater society, right? For them to work, for them to become American. Again, another attack on culture and language to make us become American. And so that was the Removal Act,
you dope right? With this history shit. Usually I gotta but I fuck with that.
So Minneapolis was one. Denver. Now there's these big cities, right? Like these cities where there's lots of natives in them. Minneapolis has more natives than the whole state put together. Right. Like, which is crazy because we got 11 reservations around us, right? But Minneapolis and St. Paul put together has more natives than all of them. Denver was one, LA, and
that's why I said the
California.
West Coast for sure.
Yeah, LA was one, Seattle was one. So you have these little hubs, these little city hubs now, where there's a lot of native people. And what happened there was like, now you're removing us from our individual reservations where everybody's Ojibwe, or down here everybody's Lakota, and you're putting everybody together.
Got you.
Yeah, so that everybody's intertribal in the cities is what we call it.
So when the Removal Act was established and it did happen, what happened to those indigenous lands that were once occupied by those native people that were forced into those inner cities areas and got all of those social constructs that we talk about? Like, what happened to the lands?
They're still there. Like, the people are still there. Not everybody was with the Removal Act. Some people was like, F that, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't going to the city. I'm doing all right here, right? Because we still had, with our reservations, our agreement, and it's not quite a purchase, but it's an agreement through the treaties, was that we would have a right to our lands, which means we could hunt, fish, still feed ourselves, that we would have a right to education. So that's the Indian Education Office through the BIA, the Bureaucracy of Indian Education, is still a federal agency. And then we had a right to health service, right? So you'll see like which we call Indian Health Services, IHS, which is like some of the most underfunded, poor health services you could see, but it's better than nothing, right?
You ain't gonna die if you get bit by a snake.
I mean, you still might if the waiting list like 30 days and the snake venom gets you whatever for them 30 days, right? Like you might not be able to get an appointment for 3 months, but
crazy.
It's still there. So yeah, so those were the 3 things we signed our treaties for. It wasn't an exchange of money; it was an exchange of land for these rights. So a lot of them stayed on their reservations. That's why they still exist.
One thing that I read was, and this is also that's something that happened in other areas or two. I can speak on just one. Have you ever heard of I was just on the tip of my head. It was a city in Florida, and now it's Lake Lanier. It was a city in Florida. It was named after a black guy. He had owned a bunch of land and property in the area. It was a bunch of black people that was living. They had housing. They had different little stores, kind of similar to what a reservation might have looked like in a small town in Florida.
Yeah.
And
look it up, Lake Lanier.
Lake Lanier, and look up the history of it. But there was a group of white guys that was in the KKK, or they were claned up. They came through the town, killed everybody, burnt it down, and they made a lake over it. And that's just one example. There's another example. Have you ever heard of Black Wall Street?
Yep, of course. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And cities like that and things of that nature. One of the things I read about the Removal Act was after the natives were removed and
sent to cities.
Yeah, sent to other. Well, I actually read that they were told to go west of the Mississippi. So again, I do get that they had to go to inner city areas, but initially that was part of what I read, that most of them were told to go west of the Mississippi. That might have been mixed up with the Trail of Tears situation. I might be mixing that up, but then the second part that I read on there was that once they were removed, that a lot of those areas were then opened and accessible for the freed American citizens at the time.
Okay.
And in 1947, I just want to wrap both of our women of all nationalities couldn't even own
couldn't vote.
Couldn't own. Couldn't have a bank account.
Yep.
So that excludes women. We're just gonna take y'all out the boat. Who was free and American in 1947? It was a whole bunch of white men. And the people that inherited a lot of those indigenous lands after the treaty was signed, and I'm not saying they inherited all of it, but they inherited were a lot of the poor American citizens. And a lot of people, history has a tendency of mashing 3-4 different perspectives in one bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So and manipulating how we see them.
Yeah.
So for example, Martin Luther King in like the Hitler situation existed in a similar time frame.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they'll put one in the history book in black and white, and they'll put one in vivid color and make it seem like it was 2 completely separate time frames. You know what I mean? So it's really hard for us to pinpoint information and really find out information. But what do you think about that, what I just said? Once the Removal Act was complete, like a lot of those lands were opened up to some of the freed American citizens at the time who did and were able to like. That's honestly, in my opinion, now when I'm thinking about just the like demographic and like the location of everything. You said Minnesota, Shakopee area is one of the richest tribes.
Yeah.
I've been to Shakopee.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Seattle. I've been to New York. I've been to a bunch of different states that considered to have indigenous tribes, right?
Yeah.
I looked at a map for where tribes used to be at, and I ain't finna get into that. But I've been to different places where indigenous tribes. I ain't really seen too many Asian natives. I haven't seen a lot of Hispanic natives, but a lot of them seem European. And what do you think about that after the 47, 48? What do you think about that? Because I'm not saying that they're white. all the way?
Yeah. Well, okay.
Because you don't seem white to me at all.
Yeah. So there was, okay, I think we're talking about a different time. I think you're still talking about westward expansion. And they did. Pretty much, you know, the U.S.'s motive was to always get our land and to get more and get more and get more. And now, you know, reservations across Minnesota have something that's called checkerboarded. They opened up some of our land, or if you couldn't be a woman, you couldn't own, right? So let's say my dad, you know, signed treaty, tribe gave us this plot of land, but then my mom and dad passed away. I could not own it. So they could take it back and sell my dad's land, even though it was rightfully ours, to a non-native. And so that's where reservations have a lot of white people. That's why I said checkerboarded, right? When you think of how a checkerboard looks, this is native land, this is a white person's house, this is native, this is a white person's house, right? Like, so we did get mixed up a lot like that. But then also, I mean, I mentioned, you know, Christopher Columbus raped a lot, you know. Rape back then was like, they tie us up, our women up to trees and just rape them.
Like the Thanksgiving story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not, you know, that's one perspective too, right? So
I'm just using that as an example for people that may not get the full idea. If anybody ever read the story of Thanksgiving, or Pocahontas or something like that, you know? Yeah.
So we did start, we mixed up, right? Like everybody was getting mixed up because of that. And in our culture, we have some, like when I follow a clan system, I follow my dad's clan system, and he's Eagle Clan. And those were like the leaders of our tribe. But if your dad was white, you were automatically gifted to the Eagle Clan, because back then we used to think like, oh, you're part white, you're going to be able to mediate our tribal relationships with white people better.
Right.
So in some ways it was a good thing when we had mixed kids.
Right.
And in some ways it was a way of whitewashing us.
Right.
And that still happened to every tribe. Every tribe got whitewashed, in the sense, if we, because they tracked us, and they still do to this day. I'll show you my tribal ID. They track us through our blood quantum. And the only other things that get tracked through blood quantum is purebred horses and dogs. Because once our blood quantum goes away, they have the right to take the rest of our lands, right? When there's no more Native Americans to be sovereign, even though we signed these treaties with them, they're gonna, you know, they can take everything again. So that was one way and one system that's really given to us by the government to track us, to you know, check, are these natives actually native?
Right.
And then how much native?
How much native? How
much native? Because a lot of tribes have, Turtle Mountain in North Dakota, we have a quarter blood quantum.
Right.
Right. So I'm 1332. You know, I'm a little bit under half. But if we cut my kid, say I have a child with you or someone who's not from Turtle Mountain, my kid's blood quantum, they're only going to get blood from me. They're going to get the other blood from their dad, which is going to be non-native, so their stuff's going to be cut in half.
Right.
So my child is going to be 1362, and that's going to be under a quarter, and that child can no longer be enrolled in the tribe.
What is the
so that
amount
child
that you have to have?
A quarter.
25?
Yep, 25%.
What is 25%? What's the number that amounts to 25? 1350?
For out of 32?
1332.
Right, so half of 32 is 16. That's 50%.
Oh, so you have to be
it's a
under.
Fraction.
Okay,
you have to be under 25%.
I didn't know what those numbers represented. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a fraction.
What does 32 mean? There's 32 total of y'all?
No, that's just the fraction. So
what do you know what the numbers represent though? Like the 13 and what, or
it's a fraction. Listen, it's a fraction, right? So my parents are like my dad's grandma's 1 out of 1.
Okay.
Now if you cut that in half, it's 1 out of 2. You're a half.
Gotcha.
It's a fraction. So if you cut a half in half, it's 1/4, right?
So
and
are
that
those
is the
fractions
minimum.
Representing people?
This is representing our blood quantum, our degree of native blood.
Over my head, but we're gonna go.
This is statistics and mathematics and mostly statistics.
I'm literally in school right now studying, doing statistics and algebra. We gonna skip past that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But basically, this is how they tracked us, right? This is how they track real, legitimate Indian blood, like the census, right? Like
gotcha.
they, you know, we have black, we have native, we have white, we have, you know, when they do the census, they mark our race, right?
Yeah.
Same here. This is how they tracked our race, essentially, through the federal government system. Like I said, my kid, no matter what, if I don't have a kid with someone in Turtle Mountain, and then this is the thing too, their blood's going to be cut in half. But let's say I had someone with a a baby with someone from Turtle Mountain whose blood was half. Mm-hmm. Now my kid's blood is going to be that half versus my 1332 half, and whatever those fractions add up, that's where the numbers start getting bigger.
Gotcha.
Right? So when you add a half to a quarter, you're getting 3/4.
Gotcha.
And then that kid is 75% blood quantum.
Gotcha.
So that's how they tracked us over the years, and it's also a way to annihilate us and eliminate us, right? Because we're a few generations down. Both my parents are Turtle Mountain. All 4 of my grandparents are Turtle Mountain. All 16 of my great-grandparents are Turtle Mountain.
So it's important for you to have a Turtle Mountain husband.
If I want my kid to be enrolled, but we live in 21st century, like, I'm related to half those people back there because of my family. So, like, and then that's just the dynamics of what a lot of tribes are discussing right now is how are we going to continue our tribes. Red Lake is one of the Ojibwe tribes in Minnesota. They did a study on themselves. They hired Wilder Foundation here to see how long it would take until they didn't exist, and it was going to be about 2050. Now, that's right around the corner. 2050, if they didn't all interbreed and keep their blood quantum.
Why y'all don't like interbreed within different tribes? Like,
because
that makes the numbers larger?
So not all tribes recognize each other's blood, right? Turtle Mountain is not Red Lake.
I get that.
So they're not going to take Red Lake blood.
I'm saying because it doesn't matter to this number at all for them?
It's still native, right? And this is one thing, the Minnesota Chippewa tribe band 6 tribes together.
Gotcha.
And then they add each other's blood up. So if you're part of the Minnesota, like say you're a Quarter, Leech Lake, these are all different tribes in Minnesota, but they're all Ojibwe. Okay, yeah. They're all Chippewa. A Quarter, Leech Lake, and then you got one grandma from White Earth, and then you got another grandma from Grand Portage.
Yeah.
If you are that grandchild, you can add up all their blood to be enrolled in the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, but you might not have a quarter to be in Leech Lake. Like your blood quantum might be less than a quarter to be enrolled in Leech Lake. You have to be enrolled in the Minnesota Chippewa tribe by adding all these bloods together. But see, the Minnesota Chippewa tribe is unique in the sense they're one of the only ones that do that.
Right.
Yeah, not everybody counts each other's blood. Like we don't count nobody else's blood in the Turtle Mountains.
That is very sophisticated.
So I could have a baby with an Ojibwe man from Red Lake or White Earth, but my tribe is going to be like, well, that's not our tribe. You can only count your blood. And then my kid would be a descendant, right? They'd get half my blood, but they wouldn't be enrolled because they'd be under a quarter.
What happens to the blood once you die?
Nothing. I still die with that blood. That doesn't change.
Because they counting it and stuff, so I just figured like it was a reason for it other than the identification of the person. It's
straight for identification, but that's, like I said, we're at the generations where if we don't intermix and interbreed, which is kind of not, we're not gonna, our tribes ain't gonna survive. And that was the U.S. government thinking way back, like how do we get rid of them completely and take all their lands? How do we take everything for ourselves? If the tribes don't exist, the treaties don't need to exist. They don't need to honor the treaties. And then they can take the rest of the lands.
It's a cold world. Honestly, I think y'all should get together and like have a fucking toast and figure. Because
it's been a topic.
Cousins at this point.
It's been a topic of conversation for tribes for many years because we're reached that point. But what Red Lake did? They did that study. They found out they wouldn't exist by this time, and they said, because we have tribal sovereignty, we govern ourselves. Like the U.S. government can only come onto our lands for certain things, like murder, like a few things they can come on and intervene. Gotcha. But they said everybody born before this year, I think it was like 1970, they just changed their blood quantum. They said everybody's 100%. So when your parent, like if both my parents were 100% and their blood quantum changed, I would become 100%. Right. So then my blood quantum would change. It might not be accurate to what it actually is, but that's what the tribe. They just they just changed their bylaws and stuff so that they could continue to exist.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a separate question away from this because we've been kind of on that for a while.
Like,
I'm so glad we actually got that
history,
because no facts. It's a lot of black people that grew up with grandparents that told us that we are native or we're this or we're that.
Yeah.
First off, you can't be Cherokee. Cherokee was an area, not a people, and it actually describes a people.
It's
but
a
it
tribe.
wasn't a specific. Yeah, but it wasn't
still
like
a tribe.
It's like saying Ojibwe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it's like anyway.
And there's some to that too. Like our people intermix too. You know, like the Trail of Tears, and when you think of all the freed slaves that were coming north, they navigated the land through the tribes who had done it for 500 years. We started intermixing with, and that's where you see mixed natives too.
I got a pot on that too. Yeah. By the way, the slavery thing. But I mean, again, information frees the nation. Do your own research and don't let nobody else learn you something. One thing I say in one of my songs is speak what you know and not what you've learned, because anything you learn can be unlearned, but what you know, you feel it in your soul. So that's, I'm gonna leave that there. One thing I do want to ask you is how is basketball going for you? Are you still actively playing sports?
Yeah, so I played my whole life and then played through high school. Played through college, 4 years, got out, and then I hit what we call the tourney trails. So a lot of the tribes actually host money tournaments. Mm-hmm. The biggest one hosted up here in the Midwest is the Ho Chunks. You know, they put up 10,000. You win that tournament, you win 10,000 with your team.
Who's the Ho Chunks?
The Ho Chunks they've been in Minnesota before Minnesota was established. But when they were colonized, their reservations and communities got recognized in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're all in Wisconsin.
That's why.
But some of them live here, though. I'll say that some of them, you know, because they've been in Minnesota, but Minnesota never recognized them.
But they got a tournament though.
Yeah, so the Ho Chunks have a tournament in Baraboo, like right outside Wisconsin Dells.
Okay.
It's every year. It's called March Madness, and so
Is it for women only?
It's for men and women.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it like a Gus Smacker setting, or is it like?
It's like a 5-on-5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a legit basketball tournament. Okay. Refs, you know, money. Like you, and then I found out too. Like I didn't grow up playing with natives around here. There wasn't a lot of natives that played basketball in our city.
Right.
But I get on the tourney trails and I'm like, damn, there's this girl from Standing Rock that's like a GOAT in her community. Like, you know, there's like this chick from Oklahoma that's like 1,000-point scorer, and like, you know, so I found out we could hoop. And some of us went to college and some of us is still hooping, and like some of the tournaments are super competitive. Those money ones are super competitive. So that's how I continue to play basketball. And then I got into coaching. I've been breaking like a finger every year. Yep. So this one, the pin just came out. I was playing. I broke it playing. I jammed the joint shattered. It went in like I jammed it. So like I went to go get the ball and the ball hit. And then, it shattered the joint. So that was in November at Native Nationals in Vegas. So
Native Nationals.
Nationals.
So you play in a league.
Kind of. I do play in a league, a for fun league.
Okay.
I play with a bunch of older ladies. They're nice, real ladies. And we play in that league in Minneapolis. There was one in St. Paul that we were in. But those are just like our rec leagues for fun.
Got you. So what is Native Nationals then? That's like, again, it's probably part of the res.
Yeah, there's like different, you know, organizers, and I host one too, so I'm gonna invite you. Ours is in October, and it's coming. Indigenous Peoples Weekend. You know, we don't do Christopher Columbus Day here. We celebrate Indigenous Peoples Weekend and then Indigenous Peoples Day. And ours is a money tournament too, but it's not just for natives, it's open. So anybody could play. But some of these tournaments, you know, you gotta show your tribal ID to get in them. You have to be native. And so it just depends. Some tribes host them, like Ho Chunks host that one, and March Madness, they host that one. Mm-hmm. And then there's also this organization called Indigenous Hoops League. They've been putting a lot of tournaments on now. So sometimes it's just families who know how to organize and got the resources to do it, and they host them. And that's what Native Nationals is in Vegas. They host one at the high school level, middle school level, even the babies get a tournament. And then they have it also up to the adult level.
I got 2 questions.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the young lady that was Native American that got drafted to the Timberwolves, right?
Yeah. Alyssa Peely.
Alyssa, I knew it was
Peely, the Lynx.
Yeah. Alyssa, I remember that name. I was kidding.
Yeah, she's dope. I love Alyssa. I mean, I wish she got more playing time, but I think, you know, we got a stacked team, so at the end of the day, you gotta earn that playing time, and you gotta break the roster.
Well, we got the semifinals, or we went to the finals this year, right? Semi.
Yeah.
I think we got to the semi, but
no. We went to the finals, actually. You're right. Against New York.
Yep,
we did, and we lost. But it was still good series. So I love Alyssa Peely, and she's actually come to one of those tournaments from Indigenous Hoops Leagues. They host 2 in Minneapolis.
How big is that for y'all community to have more people being recognized as like professional athletes and like entertainers and stuff like that? Because I don't really know, like, a lot of native or indigenous people that will be considered famous or social celebrities or anything like that. That's off the top of my head, other than maybe my Alyssa right now. Is The Rock? He's more Samoan or Hawaiian.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
He's something.
Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't know a lot, but how big is that for y'all community to have like?
It's huge. I mean, it is really huge to have that representation on the big stage. Because like our kids, you know, and that's why it's important we have these tournaments and stuff too, is like they have a place to see each other. They have a place to see someone like, oh, this person's older than me. Yeah. They're still playing. They're successful. They're in shape. They're not in the streets. They're not doing drugs. They're not neglecting me. Yeah. Right. So like it's important for our children to see people on the big stage doing those things. Yeah. Just so they can see themselves. You know, they always say representation is important. It's super important in our community because we haven't had a lot of it, you know? Yeah. So, you know, there is not a lot of, like, if you're in the Native community, you know who's who and you kind of know some of the quote unquote celebrities, but they're still not, like, in the eyes of, like, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, you know? Like, it's not at that same status. Yeah. But there's people breaking, you know, in the NBA, too. We've got Lindy Waters the third. Okay. He's been, like, going from a couple different teams, but he was with Oklahoma playing with Chet. Okay. And then he got traded to the LA team with not LA, Stephen Curry's team. Oh, okay. He hit a buzzer beater this year when Stephen Curry was out. Lindy was playing, and then he just
Golden State.
Golden State. Yeah, then he just got traded to Detroit. So, and then there's Marjan Beaucamp. He's mixed Native. And also African American. He's with the Bucks. I don't know if he got traded or not. I haven't kept up with
Beaucamp's an indigenous last name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe. I don't know whose last name he has, his mom or his dad's, but he is a enrolled Native. So, and then who's the third one? Who's the third one in the NBA? Lindy, Marjan. Oh, this one, Kyrie Irving. And so Kyrie Irving,
that's dope.
Yeah, his you know, he got connected later in life because his grandma's from Standing Rock, North Dakota. Okay. And his grandma's enrolled, so he, you know, again came into being an adult, connecting to his Native roots, and he went back. He went to, you know, he went there and he got his Native name. So I don't know how to say it in his language, but he's called Little Mountain. That's his native name, is Little Mountain. That's right. That's what we all call him though. Like, you ask any Native about Kyrie Irving, we do not call him Kyrie Irving. That's Little Mountain right there. Little Mountain put on for us. Yeah,
act like he from y'all hood.
Yeah, for real though. I mean, like, in a way he is. He just didn't grow up or be connected. That's the reality of a lot of, again.
I mean, at least he's interested in knowing though too. Yeah. Especially being on that stage, like you said, the representation means a lot.
Yeah, and like, I mean, that's also a real life example of how blood quantum works, right? Like, he is Native and he does have a Native grandma, but he wasn't connected. That's the erasure of Native people, right? But he did enough research to go get connected, and to learn about his Native roots, and then he, you know, the Native community, you know, claims him. So that's all you got to do is, you know, take that time to go find your connection, and then you get claimed. But there's also a lot of pretendians out there. There's a lot of people who claim to be Native, but they actually ain't connected. Yeah.
But not connected. So when you are indigenously bloodline, but not connected socially, does that separate you from your? Because there's, like, you know, Hispanic people that don't speak Spanish. Yeah. You know what I mean? Is it something like that where they look at you like, nigga?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, it's kind of just, it's like claiming the identity without claiming the culture. It's like America. We made Taco Bell, but it's not Mexican. You know, it's like we love the food. We might love something of the culture, but we don't truly love the people. Right. And there's a disconnect there, right? So it's like you still want to bridge that connection, because otherwise the people gonna feel sideways.
That's real. And in your opinion, is the Native American or indigenous community, is it something that is, well, obviously you just said because it's getting smaller. Yeah. And the numbers, do you feel like people show respect, or how can people show respect properly to the indigenous community? You know, just on the social media or just like with what they do. You know, how some of the events that are popping up that are for everybody, how can we become intertwined in some of those things?
Yeah. I'm a teacher too, so I work at an early childhood, and like I actually wrote an article about ways other teachers, right? Because I get this question a lot, like, how can I teach my kids about Natives if I'm not Native, right? And like do it in a respectful way. Mm-hmm. Like one of the things I say to start with is to like research the land you're on, right? And then like every place has local tribes, right? So in Minneapolis, it's really the Dakota communities. We kind of had some Ojibwe and Ho Chunks like around here too. So like that's one way, right? Is research the land you're on and like learn about what local tribes you have around you that still exist. And then like if you're in the classroom too, like you could always take a field trip to a powwow, or you could take a field trip to one of these events that are hosted by the natives, the native tribe, or you know, host one yourself. And then number 3 is to like find a native person that you know, that could teach you or teach your kids more. So I said those are 3 easy ways, right? Like just learn about whose land you're on. There's a website out there called like nativeland.org or whatever, because like we said, there's 500 tribes, right? So like in the South it's completely different. Like their cultural practices, like the Seminoles are in Florida, and they're the second richest tribe, but they be wrestling gators and stuff, and like I would never, you know, like, so that ain't my native culture. It's different, but I recognize that.
What's up with the Florida State Seminole being a black dude, but the Seminoles down south ain't black? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that I be trying to say, like, when they, like, put stuff in our face for a reason, and then we don't recognize it, but then they got terms that describe black people like reds, you know?
Those are, like, in my opinion, like, derogative, like, appropriation. Right, like obviously everybody who goes to Florida State ain't Seminole, and probably in fact there's like probably a very, very small percent of people who actually are Seminole who go to Florida, right? Because like natives in college is also a very small number.
Right.
Like,
now, I'm just talking about the logo, the emblem guy.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like I think it came from like an appropriation standpoint of, and sometimes it's like it's in your face, like we still own you, right? Like we still own you, and we're gonna make everybody dress up red face. And it's like almost like a
Seminole dude on the Florida State. You seen the Florida State guy?
Yeah.
That's a brown skin. He that color.
Yeah.
Like the chick.
Well, same thing. Like same thing. There's the Seminole. There's like multiple mascots,
like
right?
The Indians, the Cleveland Indians.
The Cleveland Indians. What's the NFL one? The Kansas State.
The Redskins.
Yeah.
That was the red face one. But the Florida State Seminole is a brown faced Indian chief.
Yeah.
With fucking locks.
Yeah.
You gotta look that up. That's crazy. Like. Yeah. And then the Chicago Blackhawks.
The hockey team, right?
Blackhawks.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So those are just, I don't know. It's just like a appropriation kind of, in my opinion, of like, we're gonna dress up and play you. It don't matter what color you are. We're going to dress up and play you and show you in your face that, you know.
It's like
even though we're not going to let you in this university, we're going to dress up and play you, you know. It's kind of like a derogative.
It's their
And some people don't care.
face.
Yeah, it's their blackface.
Gotcha.
Like some natives are like, whatever. That don't impact me negatively. But again, thinking about little kids, right? Like, think about, like, little kids absorb everything in their brain, right? Like, their brains are sponges. So if you cuss in front of them, they're going to start cussing.
Facts.
Saying the same thing, right? Like, if you teach them one narrative, they're going to think that.
You start dancing, they're going to dance.
Exactly. So, like, sometimes that's not the narrative you want to teach kids, because there's actual Seminoles out there, too, that exist, right? And so when you play red face or black face or whatever, it's like, again, kind of a derogatory way against those people.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, and some of them say we're honoring you. Well, then give us free tuition.
Right.
That would honor me. Put me in a place to win. That would honor me, right?
Make it a school for us to only inhabit.
Make a native person be on the horse and carry the, right? Like,
make one of us the head of the school.
Exactly,
you know
right? Like,
so that's real representation and respect. I got you.
Yeah. So, like I said, in some ways, it's like almost mockery in a way. Yeah.
What is Montessori?
Montessori.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, you're like, that's another word too, though. Like, a lot of people confuse Montessori with Montessori, and Montessori has to do with the church, and I'm not 100% sure what that is.
What does that mean?
I don't know what the Montessori is, but Montessori is a woman's last name. Her name was Maria Montessori.
Got you.
And
that's actually really cool.
Yeah, she was an amazing person. Like, she was a doctor when women weren't doctors yet. She's from Italy. She traveled the world before, like, world travel, like planes were like a thing and accessible, and she studied children all over the world. And so she developed this Montessori method through again, some of her practices as being a doctor, but understanding how children's development works, how children learn through our senses, right? And then now neuroscience is like proving the Montessori method.
I saw you post something about that. You're a neurologist?
No, I got my undergrad in neuroscience. And I thought I was going to go into medicine, like pharmacy and shit. Like, it wasn't for me. I was like, nah, I don't want to, like, because I took a neuropharm class, and it was all about memorizing, like, hundreds of prescriptions. And I was like, I just can't do this. Like, I need a computer to look it up, you know? Like,
that's actually really cool. Like, you're a scientist, though.
Yeah. So I studied the brain, and, like, through my time, I was like, this one ain't for me. Like, I studied pain. And we were like lighting rats' tails on fire and trying to like, and I was like, this ain't for me. I was like, I got to do something with my degree that involves people, right? Like, I can't look under a scope all day.
Right.
I can't be getting medicines all day. Like, that wasn't impactful or purposeful to me. So I ended up going into Montessori training to be a teacher, and to like study children's development and like brain development. Because like really our brains are formed in the first 6 years. Gotcha. Our first language, like, is sometimes our second language, right? Like, dual language learning actually opens up other parts of the brain that a lot of us don't have, right? Because as adults, it takes us 7 years to get a second language. And so, like, learning the difference between grass and wood, we don't remember that because it happened in our brain before we were 3 years old, right? So everything in the first 6 years of life is literally setting up our brain to continue developing in a good way, or then they talk about the ACEs scores, the adverse childhood experiences, that really stunts brain growth. And that stunts our ability to be like socially, emotionally competent unless you're going to therapy and healing and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, that's, Montessori is like an educational method that's very different than like our public school idea of here's the textbook, pour all this information into all the students' heads. Montessori is like, here's a child, here's their gifts, here's an individual learning plan based on this child and their gifts. It's detrimental.
I'm okay with that though, because I think it's our responsibility to teach our children, and when we put it in the hands of somebody else, this is the result we get. It's been in the hands of somebody else for years.
I 100% agree with that.
Lots of years.
I agree with that, but what about the parents who don't know how to read and can't teach their kids how to read? Now we're just leaving them behind.
No, it's our responsibility. Like, you got brothers and sisters? Mm-hmm. If they fail, do you feel bad?
To some extent.
Because it's your responsibility to make sure that they can maintain.
Yeah.
And not necessarily walk for them, but like, are you your brother's keeper means a lot to people who actually lived similar walks that minorities live. You know what I mean? Like, I know Hispanics that they'll never leave one of their people behind. I know black people the same way, natives, Asians. So honestly, I think it's probably for the best. It sounds crazy because everybody got kids, and a lot of kids sometimes. I got 4 myself. 3 of them are under 5. Mm-hmm. I would prefer to homeschool all of them.
Yeah.
Over giving them. My 5-year-old comes home with a sickness almost every week.
That's normal though.
My 4-year-old's learned every cuss word at daycare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't cuss around him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
I'm not against it because it does teach them cognitive dissonance. That's something that they really need at an early age. Like, results vary based on where you are in life and who you are and the relationship you have. And you need that because your relationship with dad ain't the same relationship you got with everybody else. If you hit somebody else, they gonna hit you back. You hit dad,
Yeah.
So like,
you get to teach. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do love that perspective, but I do feel like hands-on, you can influence the direction your kids learning, and I feel like that's important.
I agree with that. I do 100% agree that it's every individual family's job, but there's also there's the reality of the world and the economy we live in, right? Can you afford to take off Monday through Friday 9 to 5 to teach your children?
Right now?
Yeah.
I do.
All right. Okay. How about your wife then?
She do.
Do?
I work. For the last 5 years. My girl haven't worked. I paid all the bills. I've literally, if you go on my Facebook, every morning before I go to work, I read to them. My girl usually cook for them and make the food.
So why y'all send them to childcare then?
We don't.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's what I said.
Okay,
We're all 5.
You're the wrong example. You're the wrong example.
We don't. My 5-year-old just now
Okay.
started school because he's about to start first grade next
Public
year.
school, yeah.
Yeah,
Public
so
school,
he just started school. But my 2 and 3-year-old, they're at home all day. They've been at home all day since we had them. My 12-year-old, I didn't really have a responsibility in that, but I encourage everybody to teach their kids themselves, because when you get to influence them and encourage them and put all of the gifts into them yourself, it's like there's something behind it that you give them. It's like, for example, like I read in when you breastfeed is this thing in breast milk that
it's
like,
much better.
It's like real, specifically designed for the baby.
Yeah.
It's like divine.
Do you know why?
Yes and no.
It's because
Go ahead.
Whatever's in that breast milk is what the mom's been eating for 9 months. The baby's been inside the mom eating her diet for 9 months.
So he's just used to her
diet, right? So, and then that's why, you know, they do talk about formula babies being a little less, I don't know what you want to say, like a little less developed, right? Yeah. Because you drastically change that child's diet from they getting everything their mom's eating, and then their mom's body is filtering it for them and giving them all the good stuff, all the nutrients and all the things you was just about to talk about, right? But then you put a formula, then the baby comes out, that baby's only drinking formula. This is a whole foreign substance that this baby's never been used to.
And it's not actual
food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, not nutritious.
Mom eating actual diet food. Yeah. She getting carbs and everything.
Yeah.
I was saying the same process or thought process that goes into a baby breastfeeding is the same thing that I would necessarily use when an informational perspective. Like that's why I will read to my son, because it's important for them to hear the sounds coming from what they might from somebody that they originally get their information from in the first place, so they can believe it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's a difference if somebody that's a stranger tell my son no, and then when I tell him no, and that's just a simple term that's universally used.
Yeah.
But if he go outside, and I want him to be able to listen to everybody, but I also don't want him to be afraid of everybody and the same stuff. So when I tell him no, don't do that. It's a respectability that he have. He ain't even afraid. He just respect. But when somebody else tell him, he might stop. But it's not the same respectability that he go around. And I want to teach him that. I just think it's a direct approach that you should have, a hands-on thing.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And you're in a privileged place that you can do all that.
Yeah,
Think about other people in our high school who are struggling. They don't got housing, right? Think about the parents who cannot read because they went through Minneapolis public schools and they never learned how to read, so they can't read to their child. What do they depend on?
And I hate to use
who helps them, you know?
We all got family members that can't provide everything soundly for their dependents.
Exactly. It's within our own families. So think about the people who ain't in our families who are struggling, like who need these sorts of things. And Head Start is a tuition-free model. We're not a tuition-free model, right? Like, I mean, we do serve everybody, and we go find private scholarships for people who can't afford it. But it's just one way to help the people who fell through the cracks, in a way. And like, even some people are 2 working parents. They both work at McDonald's. They can't. Are you going to choose to read to your child and be homeless, or go to McDonald's, work all these crazy hours just to pay your bills?
Look, I know I'm blessed.
Just to feed your child.
I know I'm blessed.
So,
I am highly favored.
Yeah.
And I work damn hard to be that, but that's not to take away from anybody that can't be that.
Yeah.
I always encourage people to just be the best version of themselves, and if your best version is working those smaller
jobs,
working those smaller, what's considered socially smaller jobs in order to provide, and having to miss out on certain things, and then having to send your kid to early child ed, I'm all for that. But if you can, that's basically what I was saying. Yeah. And even after that, you know, if you watched King Richard,
I haven't. Is that a new movie?
That's the movie about Venus and Serena's dad.
Oh, okay. I've heard of it, but with Will Smith.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it through, but
that was honestly my inspiration on fatherhood, and I got a couple mentors that I use too. But this man worked 2 full-time jobs and would get up at midnight, go out with his kids for 2 hours, practice with them, have to get up at 4 a.m, so he only getting 2 hours of sleep a day. You know what I mean? And I just understand sacrifice.
Yeah.
And again, that come with a lot of hard work and dedication. And
absolutely.
It took a lot of grinding to get here, and I'm not saying that everybody can't be here, but everybody
gotta want it.
Yeah. Everybody gotta want it.
And want to sacrifice. But some people sacrifice their kids just so they could sleep. There's a lot of different sacrifices being made. And unfortunately, you know, and like, I don't judge anybody, but like the younger generation of parents, it looks different.
Yeah.
You know? It's like my mom gonna take my kids. I'm not even gonna be the parent. That's, you know, that's not...
I can't get my mom to take my babies from me. I got too many though, like, so I get it. She'll take
one at a time. Yeah, one at a time. There you go.
Okay, I got a final question before we get up out of here, because we haven't got long-winded, and I'm sorry we didn't get through all the questions.
No, it's all good. It's a good conversation.
Dope as hell. And I'm gonna definitely let you run that back. But as far as a utility belt, you know, I always tell everybody, like, think of yourself like Batman. You got like your mace over here, your gun over here, your handcuffs. You know? At this stage in your life, what do you consider your consider your utility belt to be at percentage wise when it comes to like how full it might be? I ask this question a lot.
Personally, you know, I think I got a decent belt. I think I got a decent, or whatever you call it, like put that in your toolbox or same thing, right? Gotcha. Same thing you're talking about, right? Gotcha. You know, I feel I'm employed by multiple jobs, unfortunately. Unfortunately. You know, I have my degrees. I have my, you know, quote unquote, higher education diplomas. You know, I've been raised in my culture, so I feel like good in who I am and like knowing who I am and like knowing my purpose. I would say the only thing that I wished I had in life that I don't have is being a fluent Ojibwe speaker.
Oh wow.
I'm not
That's different.
Yeah, and that's what I said. Like, I can't, you know, really complain. I'm housed. Got a car. You know, I'm not in debt. Like, I feel like I'm in a good place, and I have a lot of tools to do a lot of things. But I'm just not a fluent language speaker to do more things. For my culture and my community. And like we kind of shared earlier, it's like up to you to do that. Like, you can't someone else can't learn it for you. Someone else can't go get that degree for you. If you ain't putting in that work, you can't put that on your belt. Like, you can't claim that for yourself. So that's the one thing I really think I don't have. But other than that, you know, I feel well versed in like all the things I'm doing in life. I would say like I'd like to have more money, but I also ain't greedy, right? Like, I have enough money to do whatever I want to do and eat whatever I want to eat, and that's not the case for everybody. So
see, you like me, you probably would have been able to homeschool your kids.
And I also have all the tools to do it. So but I don't have a partner, so that's the other thing too. Like, I've kind of been dating somebody, but we ain't, you know, like, I ain't got no kids yet. So I mean, that's also been a very intentional, purposeful choice, you know, because I want to raise my kids with a partner. And like,
I want to compliment you just before we go. Since I met you, and like maybe when I really, really actually got to sit down and have maybe small conversations, like 10th grade. Like, you've always been really like intentional with your movements. Like, you've always been very stern and serious. That's not a bad thing to be. It sounds harsh because you're a female, but stern as a woman to me is like one of the most biggest compliments I can give somebody, because I mean, you're not a pushover. I mean, you're not going for nothing outside of what you believe in. And like, since your 10th grade, you've always been like, stand up about yourself. You do what you say you're gonna do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just handle your business. I remember like just like everywhere within the sports, like in different associations within the school, and now as an adult, you're doing it. Like, that's probably one of the biggest things that I can say about you right now is just a person. Like, you're just you got your hands in everything, and it seems like you're always organized and you're serious about it and passionate, and I don't think there's enough people that carry that. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
As a responsibility. So, like, that's dope.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to say, you know, standing on business.
And
I like to think I've been like that since young, you know.
For sure.
Since 10th grade, since we
You
got
kind of scared me a little bit.
Why?
Just because small girls, you know, with big attitude, not big personalities. Because you never really had an attitude. I always thought you would be, like, aggressive, and then when I really did have a conversation with you, you were, like, really approachable. But, just very stern, you know what I mean? Like, you know what you want, and I'm like, this girl's, God, she might body slam me.
You know, I had to do that a couple times in my day. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's been a great interview.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Thank
you
Cordero.
for your time.
Thank you so much.
The university,
Appreciate
we
you.
out.
Yes. Mwah. Thank you, y'all.
Hey.
We take Patron and Percocets to ease the pain. And any sentence my brother got, I felt the same time. Caught my first body with the same nine. Fuck with the Crips, but I never bang sides. Caught them shooting like the Clippers, threw up all them bank shots. Politicking with the members, know you gotta keep it solid, my nigga. Lost some homies, now the kids ain't got no fathers here with them. And then you wonder why niggas steady lost in the system. Look, you know when you're not water.